welcome back.
Welcome back to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no.
No.
I think we were so stunned. Welcome back to Leaving the Lies and Telling Your Truths. We are here with Norah Arsamont. This is the second part, and the question I asked before we left was, so Norah, when they told you not to tell your parents absolutely anything, and they took you to this house and told you to pick a bedroom, the question I asked was, did they tell you not to tell your parents that too?
Yes. Everything was a secret. Yeah.
Did they remind you, like, reiterate it? Like, after they did this in this room, now you can't tell your parents this. Okay.
Yes. So whenever we got back to the office, we were all kind of sat down, and it was like, no one is to know of this, because it was almost like this is going to be your house, but don't tell anyone, because we don't want to make anyone jealous, like your friends, or, we don't want to let anyone know, because it's just a secret. It was more of a secret. It was like, this is what could be, but don't tell anyone.
Right.
So yeah, for sure, no.
What did the rooms look like that you got to pick from?
Not nice at all. I remember, I don't remember exactly how they looked, but I just remember thinking, this isn't even a nice house. Like,
I always thinking it wasn't the Barbie dream house you imagined.
Yes, I was highly disappointed. I was like, and I'm sitting here thinking we're going to go into like a mansion, because as a child, we always thought that he lived in extravagant, beautiful houses with like nice stuff. Like, no one normal would have these things. And I just remember like, this is it? Like, it was like a really old house, kind of dingy. I mean, it was a house. It was decent, but it wasn't like beautiful or nice. So it was kind of a letdown for sure.
Wow. Okay, so continue on, please.
Well, I have one question.
Okay.
So, have you since told your parents, or are your parents going to be hearing this for the first time when they watch this?
No, they definitely know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, because I'm thinking you might want to break it to them before they watch this, because that might be a little shocking for them. Okay. Okay. So
I could say, Norah's mom and dad, grab a beer.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No. Whenever I left, I spilled everything, and they were kind of like, "What?"
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of made them feel like they had made the right decision by leaving?
Yes. I think it was definitely a little bit more of an eye-opener, considering with everything else that had went on.
Right.
It was kind of just like, wow, my daughter was in that.
Right.
It kind of hit home a little more.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it had a little bit more of an impact for sure.
What made you, I guess, break it off?
Right. So I don't.
Or did anything else happen? I'm sorry. Did anything else happen that we need to know about before that?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that I actually had told my mom was, because, growing up in House of Yahweh as well, you don't talk to your dad as much, because they teach you more. You talk to your mom. She's the woman. You're a girl. You talk to the woman. And, if you're a boy, you talk to your dad, and you wouldn't tell your mom the boy things. So I would always talk to my mom about, things. So I remember telling my mom, I was in there, and so this is what had happened. I was in there with one of his daughters, and we were kind of just coloring and stuff. And his main wife, which is like the head honcho, like, you don't mess with her or her kids. Like, you have to be very, like, step on eggshells when you're around her. She had came up to me, and, like, she never really talked to me. And she was like, it's been brought to my attention that my daughter knows a song, like a lullaby or like a movie song. And I was thinking, I have no idea. Like, I don't listen to music, or I didn't listen to really music at this time. And I never watched Barbie movies, or, I never really watched princess movies, and apparently it was some type of princess song. And I was thinking, it can't be me that had taught her this song, or how she knows the song. And she's like, well, you are the one with her all the time, and, let me see your phone. And so she kind of like, I was like, okay, like looked in my phone, like there's nothing. And so I go through all my ringtones because back in the day, you know, you had all the cool ringtones and recorded them off your radio onto your phone. And I had to play all my ringtones, all my stuff for her. And she was like, well, I'll have to, you know, get back with you. And it was kind of like I was in trouble, and I had never been in trouble with in there at all, and especially with his main wife, who is, you know, a big deal.
Right.
So I remember actually telling my mom about that, and I was like, you know, she kind of accused me of knowing some song, and I've never even heard of this song. I don't even know what she's talking about. And so after that, I had thought in my mind that was the main reason, which is why my mom and, you know, my parents had taken me out of the office and like not go in there anymore.
Just, I want to clarify real quick, Monero. Are you still 8 years old at this time, or are you a little bit older?
So I was about nine and a half, I would say, around that time.
Okay, so you'd potentially been doing this for at least 6 months to a year, then I assume.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yes. So I had been in there for a while, and I was enjoying it, and everything was fine and dandy. And then all of a sudden, this happens, and I'm like what's happened? Like I've been good the whole time, you know. So I told my mom about it. It really hurt my feelings that she accused me of something I didn't even do. And my mom goes, "You're never going in there again." Like it was a couple days later. I guess my parents had talked about it, and it was like, "You're never going in there again. You know, don't ask, don't go. If someone asks you to go, you say no." And I was just like, "What? Like what happened?" Like, I mean, yeah, it kind of hurt my feelings, but I don't want to leave. Like, you know, this was my thing. This was my normal now.
Right.
And
real quick, Norah, how often did you go into the office?
Pretty often. So I would go in there every Sabbath, and I would usually stay in there all day. So we started services around, I'd get there around 8. We started service around 9-ish, 9:30-ish. And I would stay there probably till evening, like dinner, or sometimes later than dinner, because they started doing news clips on Sabbath, where at 6 o'clock we watched the 6 o'clock news, which was their altered news videos, which I can elaborate. It's pretty much them editing nuclear bomb clips and war, and, you know, making it look like the world.
I've actually watched some of those. You can see those on their page. If you scroll back to their older ones, you can still see those little news clips.
Yes. So I would stay, and then after the news clips, I would stay maybe, I'm not sure how long they were. I wouldn't want to say maybe like an hour or so. Then I would go back in the office, and I would kind of situate some things, shut down. Like sometimes I'd close the lights, and then my mom would pick me up and I would leave. So that was on a Sabbath. And then for feast days, you know, depending on what feast it was, I would be in there sometimes, you know, 5 days a week, because we would have services every day, like tabernacles, 7 days, every day would be a feast, or I mean, a service day.
I have a quick question about the news thing, and I don't know if you are going to remember the answer because you were so young, but do you know if basically the congregation was being told not to watch the regular news and only watch the news that they were providing? Was that kind of the purpose of it?
That sounds right.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but that does sound right, because as a child, for us, we couldn't watch the real news because of the commercials, because you could see the outside world. So like if it was around Christmas time and you seen Christmas commercials, anything, it would put something like, you know, you weren't allowed. So that would make sense. And a lot of people didn't have TVs. So I don't think they could watch it if they wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So yeah,
sorry. Continue on. I just was, that question came into my mind. I just wanted to know if that was kind of the teaching, or if you knew or were old enough to remember that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So then after, you know, I was in there for the feast days, the Sabbath days, and I thought to myself, you know, I'd been there a while, so it was normal. And I thought, wow, so just from that little mishap, I'm out. This is it. And I was really kind of crushed, because that was my ticket, you know? And I'm like, now what am I going to, like, what am I really going to do? I enjoyed some of it. So I mean, I did enjoy sometimes, you know, going in there. I felt special. I got to walk through the office door and no one was allowed. And I remember my friends always asking me like, wow, what's in there? And I was like, I can't tell you. But it was kind of like, I don't know. It kind of gives you an adrenaline rush. I don't know, type thing. It's weird, but I guess you'd have to live it.
I understand.
Yeah. So he was almost like a celebrity. Like
Right, exactly.
Like, oh my God, like there's like your crush almost, but not per se a crush, you know?
Right.
It's a famous person. So yeah.
Well, by chance, did you watch the R. Kelly documentary?
I literally, Mel, when she said,
were you just thinking that too?
You take the room, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is R. Kelly all over again.
Have you watched that documentary about him?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking it too. I mean, there's some correlations there. I'm just going to put that out there. Anybody who hasn't seen the R. Kelly documentary, you should go watch it. You'll know what we're talking about.
Yes. It's similar for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we get to where your parents say you're not going anymore.
Right. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's from the little argument. And later on, my mom actually tells me that she's the one. Like, this is years later that she tells me that. Like, we've already left. I just always assumed that was why. And she's like, you know, the real reason, because I was explaining, like, we were kind of going down memory lane. And she was like, no, that's not why you got taken out from there. And I was like, well, what happened? She goes, the real reason that we took you out was because you were going to be Yishel's wife. And my mom said she was like, absolutely no. My daughter is not marrying him. She is 8 years old. This is not going to go on. And at the time, my dad was kind of like, well, you know, if she wants to marry Yishel, why not? If that's what she wants to do. And my mom was like, hell no. And so she ripped me out as soon as she could.
So do you think at that point that they were actually asking your dad if he could actually marry you?
I mean, I'm not sure about asking because I don't even know if he asks. I think he kind of just does what he wants slowly.
So,
but I do think.
So somehow then your mom got the distinct vibe that was the plan that was in the works.
Right.
And she was going to put some wrench in the gears before it got that far.
Right.
Well, good for your mom.
Yeah. I'm like, thank you now. Like, now I'm like so grateful. And at the time I was like so mad, but like, thank you.
Yeah. You're like, Mom, you saved me.
Yes. But shortly before, sorry, things just keep coming back as I'm.
No.
But shortly before, I would say I got taken out because it wasn't like that fight happening immediately. It was kind of a little bit ways down.
Right.
They were pushing me to get baptized. And the wife that was kind of grooming me the whole time, she had made it known that if I'm not baptized, I can't be in his family and I can never, they don't say marry, they say you won't be under his headship. So under his headship was you're practically married, but you don't say that. Like marriage and like saying married was almost like a worldly term. And we didn't use married. It was like you're under his headship.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually got baptized. And I went through all the baptism counseling, and they ask you a million questions, and you have to like, you know, pretty much confess everything you've ever done. And at 8 years old, it's like, forgot to salt my food and pray, and I fought with my
sister.
sibling.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. It's about all you got at 8.
Yeah, I fought with my siblings. I didn't share my toys, or, you know, I was being rude, or, you know, just little things.
Yeah, I asked my mom.
Right, I forgot to ask my mom permission to do something. Right. And so my mom always would be like, so are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? And she'd always ask me, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, leave me alone. Like, yes, I'm sure. And she said in the back, like years later when we were talking about it, she's like, I knew in the back of my mind probably that they were doing something sneaky and they were pushing you to want to be baptized. And I was like, yeah, they were. But I never told her that. I was just like, yes, Mom, I want to be baptized, you know, because at a young age, it's the cool thing. It's you're going to be saved, and you have to be baptized to make it into the kingdom anyway. So why not start now? And
Right.
my mom just remembers. She said she remembers thinking, because in the cult mentality, it's like, well, as soon as you get baptized, you're accounted for your sins. And she remembers thinking, well, you're 8 years old and you're going to be accounted for your sins. And she said to this day, she remembers like almost crying about it, thinking, I'm such a young, child. I'm going to obviously make mistakes.
Right.
And she always thought, some like almost like you have to be careful because you're not going to make it into the kingdom if you're baptized at a young age and you're making mistakes all the time.
Right.
Let me, if I may just interject for just a moment. Your mother, people out there that are watching that may not even know your mother from Adam. Your mother, back in the day when you guys were younger, was soft-spoken, quiet, tender-hearted, fully believed in Yahweh. Not the brimstone and fire Yahweh, but the love and the joy and the kingdom and, all of that great stuff. And because I really want those that are listening to grasp a hold how much it bothered your mother, probably to her very core, that you were getting baptized. But I can also hear the questions coming, oh, why did her mom even allow her to take place in this? Well, she was probably just thinking, she just wants to go up there and be a part of something. My daughter's going to be a part of something more. My daughter would tell me, my daughter is close to me. What your mom didn't, the people she thought she could trust with her daughter, she didn't realize that they were manipulating her daughter behind the scenes, and her daughter wasn't allowed to say anything.
Right.
So I really want people to understand the concept of just how wonderfully tender-hearted your mother was, but also how her brain started clicking. I need for people to understand this concept.
I was thinking the same thing, that she had to have known or felt that something wasn't right, because I was going to say something kind of along those same lines, but it's one of those things, Menorah. I don't know if your mom has talked to you about what the House of Yahweh was like when she first joined, because we were all friends and we joined around the same time that she did. And the House of Yahweh turned into something other than what it was when we all started there. For example, when you're saying that marrying into the Hawkins family secured you a place in the kingdom, or that's what you believed when you were there, that was a new teaching. And I don't know, did you watch Amber's interview? Something was said along the similar lines. And I was married to one of Yisrael's sons when I was there, and I didn't at all believe that gave me some free ticket into the kingdom. I never believed that. That was never even something that was even hinted upon in their teachings back in that time period. And I left in 94. So it really did change, and I think your mother was there to watch all those changes, and I think there was something inside of her that must have her gut instinct at her core was telling her something's not right here with this situation, and that's why she pulled you out of there, because I think she sensed that something was not right, and she felt it in her gut, regardless of what she believed or how she was teaching or how strong her faith was. Her instinct as a mother was still stronger than any of that to make sure that she protected you.
And I think it's really important that we get that across to people who are watching.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And that's because we love your mom. We just want to make sure of that.
I do. I absolutely love Karina, or your mom. So here's the next question I have. How did this cult environment affect your relationship with your parents?
Definitely didn't have a normal one. I would say, growing up in the House of Yahweh with the multiple marriage, my dad wasn't necessarily around as much as he could have been. He kind of was at my house, at our house, and then he would leave, and then he would go to, you know, the other wife's house for a short time. So he would come to our house, I'd say, you know, once a month for a week straight, or a couple days, or then the next month it could be 2 weeks for the full month. It just kind of, you know, depended. And then, you know, with the unclean laws, if my mom was unclean, then if it was his time to come over, he'd have to come over the next time because he'd have to wait. So growing up,
what made you unclean, Menorah?
Do what?
What made you unclean?
So in the House of Yahweh, unclean if you were on your period, and or if you went out into the world and were at a store and, you know, you went into a store. I want to say back then it was like if you even went into a store, you were unclean. If you touched a store, you were if touched anything in the store, you were already unclean. If you used the restroom in the store, unclean. And they don't do a normal. So if you have your period as a normal woman, you just count your days that you're on your period and you're done. With them, it's you count the days, and you have to count 7 more days after that. I don't know what it was. It was like to make sure you're clean after, you have to go through another cleansing after that type. I don't know how to explain it very good.
No. So what you're saying is if a normal woman, abnormal, normal, I'm going to use mine. Okay. We're just going to use my cycle. I'll admit it. It's 5 days.
Right.
So on the 1st of December, I start. On the 5th of December, I stop. Now, on the 5th, I've got to add 7 more days.
Yes.
So on the 12th of December,
then you would finally be clean.
But let's put it in there. If on the 6th of December you had a little spotting, now you got to start those 7-day count all over again, and now it's the 13th of December.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So you're potentially unclean for almost a whole month. So you have to imagine too, going to services, going anywhere on the grounds, you have to glove up, you have to put a face mask on, you have to wear long sleeves to here with your glove over this. Your ankles don't show, you know, full clothed. And you have to sit on a placemat or some type of thing you can fold. You know, you have to walk through a different door. You know, they have the clean door, they have the unclean door. So they have a clean door, they have your when you're on your period door, and you have the counting the 7 days door. So there's actually 3 different doors that you would go through. And that was for the elders' wives and, you know, the deaconesses and just the regular
So
people.
Autumn,
And
do you remember the black
restrooms.
shower curtain at the feast? This makes the black shower curtain seem like a walk in the park, doesn't it? We had a black shower curtain. If you were menstruating, you had to use the black shower when we were there. That was the only separation they really had for clean and unclean, was in the woman's shower room. There was a black shower curtain, and that was for women that were menstruating in the unclean shower.
Well, Melody, this makes the placemat seem easy. You know, remember, we freaked out about that.
Oh, well, I wasn't there for the placemats. That came after me.
I was. And I never used it. All of a sudden, I never had a period.
Well,
and let me tell you something. If I'd had to add 7 days onto that, I would have had a 1-day period all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes I would lie. Whenever I was younger, I would lie actually and act like it was only 3 days when it was really 5. Or it was 4 days and it was really more. And so I would feel so horrible knowing like I'm probably gonna get in so much trouble, like die, you know, because I was like, I'm just so over wearing gloves. I can't breathe. I'm sweating. And you have to remember too, in the sanctuary, we don't have air condition. We had fans that were way up in the sky that you can't even hardly
and
feel.
mind you, this is in the heat of Texas. This isn't in a northern climate. This is in Texas where it gets sometimes over 100 in the summer.
Right.
Okay.
So, Norah, if you were unclean, your father couldn't come over.
No.
If your mother was unclean, he couldn't come over.
No.
If your sister was unclean, he couldn't come over.
Yeah. So And if let's just say though, if my mom was unclean and we weren't, she would have to give us a bath, which is what we call an ablution, give us a bath before sunset, and hurry up and clean us up and stick us outside the house before the sun went down. So because when the sun goes down, that's starting the Sabbath, which is when, I guess, I'm not really sure on that. I guess it kind of just separates from the Sabbath and the regular day.
Right.
So she would set us outside, and if we wanted to see our dad, do that, and then we would go and hang out with him in his trailer that he had, or even sometimes at the other wife's house, potentially. But yeah, when it was like, you were disgusting. That's one thing that I look back on. And,
Wait,
how
it was like you had COVID.
Literally, yeah. Exactly okay. Like COVID. It's like,
just for anybody out there in the real world, it was like you had COVID. No one wanted to be around you.
But almost worse, because not only did you just have to wear a mask, but you had to wear gloves and you had to do all this extra stuff.
Right.
So it was horrible. It was awful. But they, not only that, what were you going to say?
So I'm sorry.
I'm processing.
Picturing this as a mother. If your mother is unclean and you would like to see your father, doesn't your mother have to take extra precautions to make sure that you're not unclean? Yeah. Therefore, not as many hugs or kisses, or if you fall down and get a boo-boo, yes. Or...
So she would actually have to use a separate restroom, too. We had 2 restrooms in our house, and she would use, like, the back one, and we would never use that one. Or she would sit on a certain spot on the couch. You do not sit on that certain spot of the couch. Because at the time, when we were in our own house, she was kind of lenient with, like, the placemat. So she would have her designated spot or designated chair, and then she would just wipe it all down whenever she was done at the end of everything. But yeah, no.
Wow.
It definitely, and not only just that, it's just the way they make all of the women feel. It's like, you're disgusting. You have a period. How disgusting. It's just like, they make you walk through a separate door. You're like an outcast when you're on your period. It's almost like you have a huge sickness and no one can go around you almost.
Right.
I
like
mean,
the plague.
And then and you obviously have to be gloved up and everything. So everyone knew when you were on your flow. So it was almost embarrassing that it was like, oh, so-and-so's on her flow again, or so-and-so's this, or, it was almost like a weird gossip that,
right.
like, went on.
Which you didn't even have to talk about it because it was so obvious.
Right.
So did the men have a clean and unclean door?
I believe so, yes.
Did they have to glove up and wear masks and bleed?
So if someone came from out of town for feast, they would have to do that. Or if they went into the world and used a restroom or did anything. Having trouble. Oop, my Apple Watch. But yeah, if they did anything, they would have to do the same. And I also remember, I don't think if you were on your period, you couldn't counsel, I want to say, too. Like, there were certain things you couldn't even do. If you were in the cafeteria working, they would put you on dishes. You weren't allowed to be really around the food. Or there were just little things that were tedious about that, I remember for sure.
Menorah, do you have any positive memories from growing up in the House of Yahweh?
Like, honestly? You mean honestly answer?
Yes, honestly.
Yes,
honestly, do.
I mean, as a child, I will say, and when I would go play with my friends, I had fun at some point, but then there was always something that would ruin it, but playing was frowned upon. So it was kind of like, we kind of secretly did it. So it wasn't really fun.
What do you mean playing was frowned upon?
So playing with your friends as in not doing teachings. So like if I were playing had my notebook and we were just sitting there drawing and doodling, no, you don't do that. We didn't have stuffed animals, we didn't have Barbies, we didn't have toys, but the little toys that we did have, like blocks or learning toys, it was like, you didn't have time for that. So like if someone would bring a toy, like a different parent would let their children play with certain toys, but we weren't allowed. So it was like we would sit there and play, and it was like, no, no playing. Take notes on servant. Take notes, or they just kept you so busy you didn't have time for playing. But it was also frowned upon to where you shouldn't want to play. You should want to be working for Yahweh and working for the House of Yahweh and putting all of your time as a child even to that.
Okay, I'm going to share something with you guys that you don't know. You remember I was married into the Hawkins family.
Right.
This is not a House of Yahweh mentality. This is an Israel Hawkins mentality. Because Israel Hawkins' own children were not allowed to play with toys or have fun when they were children. They did not have our own toys. If they did have toys, they came from old rental properties where tenants would leave toys behind. If Israel Hawkins found those toys, he would break them or burn them and tell the children that they were sinning. So this is something that was not taught in the House of Yahweh when we were there, but he did raise his children with this mentality. So this is an Israel Hawkins mentality, because he would tell his children the reason they couldn't have toys was because they should be working. They should be doing something on the farm. They should be plowing the field. They should be mopping a floor. They should be cleaning the kitchen. They should be cleaning a bathroom. Anything was more productive than playing with a toy.
Right. If you have time to play, you have time to better yourself.
Yes. Yes, and that is not from the book of Yahweh or the teachings of Yahweh or the House of Yahweh. That is an Israel Hawkins mentality that he had from way back before, probably before he even started the House of Yahweh.
Right, and then he brought it in to the House of Yahweh and made it a thing.
Yes.
So, Menorah, did you watch cartoons growing up?
No. I wasn't allowed to watch any cartoons. I remember even, I want to say my aunt may have bought in like a stuffed animal or a shirt that had a stuffed animal, like a Winnie the Pooh or some type of cartoon. And I wasn't allowed to play with it, wasn't allowed to wear it because, for one, animals don't talk. So that was another thing that you weren't allowed to have because animals don't talk. Or, it was childish things that wasn't, you're not going to get into the kingdom watching movies is pretty much how they put it. That's a waste of time. They're trying to alter your mind and separate you from what needs to be, done, which is the work of Yahweh, always. So yeah, no, wasn't allowed.
Wow. Mel, did you want to ask her about her extended family in the House of Yahweh?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we can do that, but we are down to 5 minutes, so we're going to have another 3-part interview. So
I have a feeling this might be 4 parts because I am brimming with questions right now. Let me just say.
So we're gonna shut down for this next part. We're gonna ask Menorah some more questions about her extended family, and we'll be back for part 3 of our interview with Menorah.